from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 1, Chapter 3, Text 33. Yatre me sad asad rupe pratisiddhe swasamvida avidyayatmani krite iti tad brahma darshanam yatra me sada sadrupe pratisiddhe swasamvida avidyayatmani krite iti tad brahma darshanam yatra me sad asadrupe pratisiddhe swasamvida avidyayatmani krite iti tad brahma darshanam
yatra me sadasarupe pratisiddhe swasamvida avidyayatmani krite iti tad brahma darshanam
yatre me sadasatrupe
pratisiddhe swasamvida avidyayatmani krite iti tad brahma darshanam. Yatra me sadasarupe pratisiddhe swasamvida avidyayatmani krite iti tad brahma darshanam. Yatra me sadasarupe pratisiddhe swasamvida avidyayatmani krite iti tad brahma darshanam. Yatra whenever he may
in all
these
sat asat
gross and
subtle rupe in the forms of pratisiddhe on being nullified swasamvida by self-realization avidyaya ignorance atmani in the self krite having been imposed iti thus tat that is brahma darshanam the process of seeing the absolute. Translation: whenever a person experiences by self-realization that both the gross and subtle bodies have nothing to do with the pure self, at that time he sees himself as well as the Lord. Purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada ki jai. The difference between self-realization and material illusion is to know that the temporary or illusory impositions of material energy in the shape of gross and subtle bodies are superficial coverings of the self. The coverings take place due to ignorance. Such coverings are never effective in the person of the personality of Godhead. Knowing this convincingly is called liberation or seeing the Absolute. This means that perfect self-realization is made possible by adoption of godly or spiritual life. Self-realization means becoming indifferent to the needs of the gross and subtle bodies and becoming serious about the activities of the self. The impetus for activities is generated from the self, but such activities become illusory due to ignorance of the real position of the self. By ignorance, self-interest is calculated in terms of the gross and subtle bodies, and therefore a whole set of activities is spoiled life after life. When, however, one meets the self by proper culture, the activities of the self begin. Therefore, a man who is engaged in the activities of the self is called Jivan Mukta, or a liberated person even in the conditional existence. This perfect stage of self-realization is attained not by artificial means, but under the lotus feet of the Lord, who is always transcendental. In the Bhagavad Gita, the Lord says that He is present in everyone's heart, and from Him only all knowledge, remembrance, or forgetfulness take place. When the living being desires to be an enjoyer of material energy, illusory phenomena, the Lord covers the living being in the mystery of forgetfulness, and thus the living being misinterprets the gross body and subtle mind to be his own self. And by culture of transcendental knowledge, when the living being prays to the Lord for deliverance from the clutches of forgetfulness, the Lord, by His causeless mercy, removes the living being's illusory curtain, and thus he realizes his own self. He then engages himself in the service of the Lord in his eternal constitutional position, becoming liberated from the conditional life. All this is executed by the Lord, either through His external potency or directly by the internal potency. Whenever a person experiences by self-realization that both the gross and subtle bodies have nothing to do with the pure self, at that time he sees himself as well as the Lord. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Tadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavascha Shri Rupam Sagrijata Sagana Raghunathavitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Saitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Pada Sagana Lalita Shri Vishakhamitanscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jaganpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tata Kanchana Gauravi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitana Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Nidhi Namine Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavani Paschatya Desakarane Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Mukham karoti vachalam, Vamdum langayate gir, Yat kripa tamaham vande Shri Guru Dinataranam, Paramananda Madhavam, Shri Chaitanya Ishwaram. So we are reading from this most sacred of all sacred texts, Srimad Bhagavatam, that Srila Prabhupada so painstakingly commented upon for the benefit of all conditioned souls for all time to come. Just this past Monday, we were celebrating the appearance day of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, one of the most important and revolutionary acharyas in our disciplic succession. One time when Srila Prabhupada was visiting Radha Kund as part of his Guru Maharaj's parikrama, he received this very valuable instruction from his Guru Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. If you ever get money, you print books. So this instruction became the life and soul of Srila Prabhupada. And later when he arrived in the Western world, he spent countless hours late into the night, early in the mornings, commenting on the most important scriptures such as Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam. So as a result of the many sacrifices he has made, today we are benefiting immensely sitting here and discussing Srimad Bhagavatam. It is very important to understand the nature of the sacrifices that great souls have made only for the benefit of humanity at large, people such as ourselves. Because unless we understand what kind of sacrifices we have made, we may not be able to appreciate very much what we are receiving, and we may esteem it lightly. It is said that Srila Prabhupada built a house in which the whole world can live. But I want to ask, but all of us have houses already that we live in. Yes. So what is this home? What is the nature of this home? What is the purpose of such a house? We all already have our homes we live in. So the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna time and again emphasizes that we are not these bodies, we are spirit souls. An entire chapter, the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita is dedicated for that one purpose, where Krishna in detail speaks to Arjuna about the difference between the body and the soul, emphasizing on the nature of the soul. So if we are not these bodies, what we live in is simply a physical structure. How can we call it our home? If we are not these bodies, where we live, it cannot be our home. It's simply a covering that shelters this body from the elements. It cannot be our home. If we are not these bodies, how can that be my home? A home is where we come together and realize our eternal position, our eternal nature as spirit soul. That is our real home. A home that can illuminate our path back to our eternal home in the spiritual world. So Srila Prabhupada came to build such a home. So on the occasion of Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur's appearance day, I was hearing a lecture by Bhaktivedanta Siddhanti Maharaj. He is a sannyasi in the Gaudiya Math who gives wonderful Harikatha, speaks wonderful Harikatha. So I was hearing, and he offered a very fascinating and lovely perspective. As he glorified Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, at one point he started to speak about our Srila Prabhupada, Desi Bhaktivedanta Swami. And he started to say, we must understand what kind of sacrifices the great souls have made in order that you and I may benefit and all of humanity to come can benefit. And he said, giving up our homes, our wealth, our power and influence, these are sacrifices that are worth appreciating, but these are not such great sacrifices. Many people, even out the Mayavadi world, they also make great sacrifices to promote a particular philosophy. So giving up one's wealth, a home, and influence or a job is not such a great sacrifice. Siddhanti Maharaj gave the example of Srila Rupa Goswami and Sanatana Goswami. They had the personal association of the personality of Godhead himself, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Sri Krishna Chaitanya Radha Krishna Nagi Anya. There is no difference between Lord Chaitanya and Radha Krishna. That Supreme Personality of Godhead, they were enjoying the personal association of and experiencing great transcendental bliss until Lord Chaitanya gave them an instruction. You go to Vrindavan, write these books and establish my mission over there. So, giving up their wealth, they were highly influential and wealthy people. That was not such a difficult thing for them. But they gave up the very association of the personality of Godhead himself in order to follow his instruction. This was their very great sacrifice. Srila Prabhupada, he was living in Vrindavan, in Radha Damodar temple, absorbed in the ecstasies of his devotion, in the very heart of the spiritual world, Sri Vrindavan Dham. But his Guru Maharaj, in their very first meeting in 1922 in Calcutta, a friend of his, Nitya Krishna Prabhu, was explaining just this past Monday on the occasion of Srila Saraswati Thakur's appearance. Srila Prabhupada was very reluctant to go because in those days, these days as well, there are so many supposed sadhus who have their own motives. But his friend dragged him there. And as they made up their way to the terrace where Srila Saraswati Thakur was speaking, even before Srila Prabhupada had paid his obeisances and got up fully, Srila Saraswati Thakur said to him, "You are an educated young man and you speak English. Why don't you go to the Western world and present this philosophy and culture of Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu?" For so many years, Srila Prabhupada lived in Vrindavan, preparing to execute that order. So he gave up living in Vrindavan Dham, his home. So Srila Siddhanti Maharaj quoted Srila Prabhupada, who once said that Bombay is my office, Mayapur is my place of worship, and Vrindavan is my home. So Maharaj was saying, Srila Prabhupada left his own home, Vrindavan. He became homeless in order that the rest of the world may find a home. Such a beautiful perspective. Srila Prabhupada became homeless in order that the rest of the world all the conditioned souls may find their eternal home. And many of us, all of us assembled here today, without this great mercy that Srila Prabhupada has showered upon this world, we would all be homeless. We may have a structure that we may call home, but that's not our real home. But now, because of the great sacrifices that Srila Prabhupada has made, we're sitting here in this holiest of all the holy places, Sri Devasadan Mandir, and we have found our eternal home. Indeed, he built a house in which the whole world can live. And this instruction Srila Prabhupada received from his own Guru, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, to whom we are eternally grateful. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was not very much in favor of establishing centers in cities like Calcutta, because in those days it was such a materialistic city. It has probably gotten worse with the advance of Kali Yuga. But yet, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur, when he began his mission, he established centers first in Calcutta. So many years later, His Divine Grace was asked, why did he do that? So Srila Saraswati Thakur, many times he would explain and narrate stories to illustrate a particular principle or point. So in response to this question, why is it that you establish centers there when some of the previous acharyas were not very much in favor? Because in those days people had this mentality to exploit if they could. So if there was a big temple that was offering shelter and boarding, a lot of times people would come not to engage in a mission, but simply to exploit, to see what they could get out of it. A place to stay, a comfortable place to live, boarding and lodging. So why would you do that? He was asked. So Srila Saraswati Thakur, he narrated a story. He said one time there was a thief who mustered up enough courage. He was stealing from the local people, but he decided this time he was going to expand his operation. He was going to steal from the king's palace. Not content with stealing little things, he decided he wanted something much more valuable. So the king's palace, there was precious jewels. He decided to steal from there. So somehow he made his way into the palace without being noticed. And as the sun set, he waited for the opportunity. So as he lay in wait for darkness to set, the king and the queen, they were walking by where he was hiding. So he heard very carefully their conversation. And they were discussing about the marriage of their daughter. Their daughter was of marriageable age, but they had not been able to find a good suitor for her. Jai Shri Shri Radha Puja Bihar. So a long and frustrating search had been ongoing. And then finally, exasperated, they decided, the king said, let us just walk out into the forest, and the first saintly personality that we lay our eyes upon, we will offer our daughter in marriage to him. So this king, this thief, when he heard that, an idea popped up in his mind. He thought, I'm here to steal some jewelry as much as both my hands can hold. But if I can somehow get into the forest before the king gets there and pose to be a sadhu, they will offer their daughter to me in marriage. I can inherit this entire palace and the kingdom with it. So thinking that way, During the night, he left the palace unnoticed and he waited in the outskirts of the forest. The next morning, the king and the queen, together with their servants, they headed out into the forest. And he was watching very carefully. So along the path that they were going to go, he quickly ran over there and sat down as if in meditation, dressing up like a sadhu. And sure enough, the king and his wife, the queen, and their servants, so as soon as they saw him, they stopped. They came, they bowed down before him. He opened his eyes and they explained their situation to him. And he said, pretending to be a sadhu, no, I have renounced everything in this world. I cannot accept your daughter in marriage. But they pleaded with him, we already made a vow. The first saintly personality we come across, we are going to give our daughter in marriage. Please, you must accept this. So, after feigning detachment for some time, he said, all right, if that is your desire, I will accept. So they brought him back to the palace. And arrangements were being made for the marriage of their daughter with this thief who now was the garb of a sadhu, a saintly person. So he was there living in the palace in royal comfort, being cared for by many servants in anticipation of the big day. As the day of the marriage approached closer and closer, this man started to think, and he thought really hard. He thought, if pretending to be a sadhu can bring me so many benefits, what benefits can I achieve by actually becoming a sadhu? So this realization he achieved while living in the palace waiting for the day of the marriage. Simply by pretending to be a sadhu, he had received so much benefits. He started to think, what kind of benefits can I get by actually becoming a sadhu? The night before the wedding, in the cover of darkness, he left the palace. He wore the robes of a sadhu and he decided, now I will live a saintly life. This experience and the realization brought about a transformation in his heart. Srila Saraswati Thakur said, many cheaters may come and live in our centers, but even if one cheater gains this realization, one cheater achieves this realization simply by posing to be a devotee, I have come and gained so much benefits. What benefits do I stand to gain if I actually become a devotee? Even if one person achieves that realization and becomes a devotee of Lord Krishna, then I consider my mission a success. So this was Srila Saraswati Thakur's rationale. He was such a revolutionary thinker. He was thinking far ahead of his times. And because of what Srila Saraswati Thakur did and the instructions and the empowerment he gave to Srila Prabhupada, today Krishna consciousness has spread all over the world. And just as we are sitting here discussing Srimad Bhagavatam and so many other centers that are in a similar time zone, this Bhagavad Katha is being discussed. What a magnificent development in the last 100 years. So this was Srila Saraswati Thakur's contribution to this world that we are all benefiting from today. And in his times, he was faced not just with the challenges of convincing people to accept this philosophy, to accept this spiritual culture, but because there were Brahmins in his time who felt threatened by Srila Saraswati Thakur's preaching. Because he preached that one is not born into a particular caste, but one becomes so by the virtue of his activities. So the caste Brahmins, they felt threatened because Their livelihoods were at stake. So there were threats made against his life. Enduring all those dangers, he gave us what we have today. So we must meditate upon the sacrifices that these great acharyas have made in order to bring this great philosophy and culture to us. In this particular verse, Srila Prabhupada writes about how when one begins to identify with the body, then one comes under the influence of the material energy. And the significant point is, by the culture of transcendental knowledge, when the living being prays to the Lord for deliverance from the clutches of ignorance, the Lord, by His causeless mercy, removes the living being's illusory curtain. That's a very important point. There is no process by which we can independently on our own achieve this state. It can only happen by the causeless mercy of the Lord Himself. By regularly engaging in the practices of bhakti, by standing before the deity and begging for mercy, we can progress. These days we see in many countries and many faiths, in the name of religion, fruitive activities are being promoted. So we should never stand before the Lord asking for material things. I was raised in a culture where we went to the local temple, usually a temple of the demigod, and just standing there and asking for so many things. Exams are coming up, please give me the intelligence so I can pass my examination. I'm going for a job interview, please let me land this job. So many different things, and in exchange for placing a few rupees in the donation box. So when my friend, my high school dear friend, he started to preach this message of Bhagavad Gita and Srimad Bhagavatam to me, he would often tell me, this person that I'm going to take you to see, the deity of Krishna, he owns his entire creation. If you're going to ask him something, why do you want to ask him for these little things? He can give you much, much bigger things. Ask him for something really big, he would say. And I would ask, what should I ask for? Ask for a place in the spiritual world, He'll give it to you. Why do you want to ask for these little things that are going to come to you anyways? According to our previous activities, our karma, we are destined to get something. We are destined to lose something. These things are going to happen anyways. There is no reason to pray for such things. So when we stand before the deity of Krishna, we must only pray that our heart becomes filled with gratitude for what we have received, and that our consciousness may be purified completely of all contamination and material desires, and that we may develop an attachment to service at the lotus feet of the Lord. And when we pray in such a way, and we come in association of devotees and serve, the Lord removes that illusory curtain from around our consciousness. And then we make progress. This association is very, very important. And Siddhartha Maharaj quoted a particular verse from the Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita that I would like to read out to you, that stresses and emphasizes so heavily on this fact, that devotional activities must be performed in the association of devotees. In Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita Madhya Leela, chapter 22, verse 131, it is said, Srimad Bhagavatam aswado rasikai saha sajatyasya snigde sadhav sangas swate mare. One should taste the meaning of Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of pure devotees, and one should associate with the devotees who are more advanced than oneself and who are endowed with a similar type of affection for the Lord. So without the association of devotees, without the association of saintly personalities, if we try to chant the holy names of the Lord, they are simply syllables, there is no potency. When Ajamila lay dying on his deathbed, he saw these horrible creatures. What look like horrible creatures, we know them to be the Yamadutas. And out of great fear, he called out the name of his youngest son, who was just a few years old, a very little boy, about 4 or 5 years old. Narayana, Narayana. And immediately Lord Narayana sent his own messengers, the Vishnu Dutas, to rescue Ajamila. It is said that one time when this little child was born, his youngest son Narayana was born, a group of devotees, they were passing by, great souls, and they asked him, what is the name of this child? And he had so many kids, even though he was in his advanced age, he had just had a little baby. So he said, I haven't given him a name. So they said, name him Narayana. So this name he actually received from great devotees who were passing by that way. And because he received that name from bona fide devotees of the Lord in his time of need, when he called out Narayana, it had full potency. And he was saved from the greatest danger. So this name we must receive from bona fide devotees, from Guru, and chant in association of devotees. We serve and read Srimad Bhagavatam and discuss Srimad Bhagavatam in the association of devotees. And when we do that, we reap the full rewards. We gain maximum benefit. Srila Prabhupada said this philosophy, this spiritual culture, we can sit under a tree and we can practice. But he established these magnificent centers. Why? To give all of us a chance to come and associate with each other. And each other's association offers service to the Lord. And in this way, we can make great progress. So by taking shelter of this spotless Purana, Srimad Bhagavatam, we can cleanse our heart of all contamination and achieve the highest perfection of human life, Krishna Prema. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Are there any questions or comments, realizations? If not, oh yes, Prabhu, please.
I started my spiritual way to fix my body, get mentally healthy. And I realized what you said. And then somehow the test came. Okay, I have to work this path. Other path no good. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing this wonderful realization from those assembled here and our viewers online. If anybody is still curious, did Srila Saraswati Thakur's planned work? We have a living example, Krishna, who's himself providing testimony. He came here because he was simply looking for a place to stay, a place he could find something to eat. And now, just a few months later, he is coming to Mangalarti, attending Srimad Bhagavatam classes, and spending so much of his time in serving. He came here with a particular motive, but in the association of devotees, his heart transformed, and he decided, this is what I want to do. So this was Srila Saraswati Thakur's vision. What was going to happen when decades later he could see through the power of his pure devotion. And Prabhu, you are one only of many, many people. I brought the class to an end, but you have inspired me to narrate one more story, very small story. I'll keep it very short. So one time in Russia, there was a group of devotees that started centers, and the KGB, their spy agency, became very upset. They thought these people must be spies, especially because this movement started in America before it spread throughout the world. So they sent a mole. You know what a mole is? Somebody who pretends to be something else. So that person, he shaved up his head. He came and he started to live with the devotees. So everybody thought he was another devotee who's here to join us. So they gave him a place to stay. And he was living with them. He was actually a KGB mole who was spying on the devotees. So every day he would go to Mangalarti, hear class, and honor prasadam. Sometimes he would even go out distributing books. And then at the end of the week, he would secretly meet with the KGB and report the activities of the devotees. Few weeks went by, and the frequency of his meetings with the KGB was going down. And then from meeting every week, he started to meet them every other week, sometimes just a month. And then many months started going by and this person never showed up to report his findings. And the KGB was getting worried, what has happened to him? Have they physically harmed him? Have they done something to him now? So they sent another person to check on him. And when that person arrived, he found this spy was no longer a KGB spy. He had truly become one of them. In the association of devotees, over a period of months, he gained so much taste that he started to realize this is the goal of life. And he actually joined them and started to live like a true devotee. KGB decided they hastily called this other person back. When you come back, because they were worried he might also join them. That is the power of this Sankirtan movement. I quoted this point a few weeks ago in Srimad Bhagavatam class. Srila Prabhupada writes in the Nectar of Instruction that devotional service to Krishna is so powerful that it will drag one to ultimate success. So this KGB agent came as a spy. And he got dragged into the world of devotional service and became a devotee. Such is the potency. So whatever our trials or tribulations or difficulties may be, if we simply somehow persevere on this path, we're guaranteed one day we will achieve the perfection of devotion. This is not my opinion. Srila Prabhupada has written this in the Nectar of Devotion. One will be dragged to ultimate success. We simply need to persevere. Thank you for sharing this realization, Krishna Prabhu. Yes? Please.
Coming at the temple, I was clear. I wanted to go spiritual path. Before only.
Wonderful. Either way, we are very happy to have you here, Prabhu. And we are grateful for all the services. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai.